Hey everyone, it's Strange Michael. I hope you're doing well today. I have one hell of a video for you of something I have to correct. I've discussed it previously on my channel. Every once in a while, one of the Dragon Ball Z game reviews I've done, whether it be not Raging Blast, I'm currently playing Raging Blast, whether it be Xenoverse, whether it be Budokai Tenkaichi 3 or Part 1, I haven't played 2 yet, whatever it may be, I have referenced this show so much on my channel. I've talked about Z, which I absolutely loved when I was a kid, and I've still loved. I still own the entire show. I actually have the orange bricks right behind me, up on the top shelf above this shelf above my head that you can see. Anyway, I'm a big fan of Dragon Ball Z. Been a fan for a long time. Pretty much own all of the movies. I remember in 2012, I think, 2011, they started announcing there was going to be a new Dragon Ball Z movie, and that eventually came out. And that movie was called, in 2013, Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods. When this came out, none of my friends had seen any of the previous movies, like Lord Slug, or Broly Second Coming, or anything like that, and I loved those films. I grew up on those films. I have the VHSs behind the top shelf on this particular bookshelf behind me. I don't have it in view, but I have them all up there on VHS and the clamshells and everything. And I had seen so many Dragon Ball Z movies. I love the old movies. I think they're fantastic. But when this came out, it was so massively disappointing. And all of the hype behind it from myself, from the internet, everywhere, I was so excited for Battle of Gods, and it fucking sucked. It was so bad. I have not rewatched it currently, but I'll get to that in a moment. And then the sequel film, I think a year or two later, came out, and I think 2015, right before the new manga I'm about to talk about came out, and that is Dragon Ball Z Resurrection F. This one I hated even more than Part 1, Battle of Gods. I say Part 1, but it's still Dragon Ball Z, before the new show came out in 2015 that I'm about to review, called Dragon Ball Super. This is a set from Walmart that has Volume 1 and Volume 2 in it, and I'll get to that in a moment, though. I kept putting it off. I didn't want to watch the show. I didn't want anything to do with the show. I just kept saying no, because I just hated Battle of Gods and Resurrection of F so much that I just didn't want anything to do with the show. It looked like shit. I had heard so many issues with the animation styles and the animation issues. The animation itself didn't look as good to me in Super compared to what I saw in Dragon Ball Z, and I just kept keeping my hands off of the shit. Well, eventually, a new movie came out a couple of years back called Dragon Ball Super Broly, and I was super interested in this. I was kind of worried because I'm a massive Broly fan. Broly is one of my favorite Dragon Ball Z villains from back in the day when Vic Mignogna, I can't say the guy's name, played Broly once upon a time before they fired him over allegations. Whatever. I love Broly and Broly Second Coming. I think they're both fantastic films. I think they're so fantastic for Dragon Ball Z or as standalone films kind of tied together. Bio Broly, fuck that shit. It's horrible. At least I haven't seen it in like 10 years, so we'll see what happens whenever I get around to reviewing that. But they decided to remake, recreate, recraft, perfect, whatever they want to refer to it as, Broly. And I watched this, and I fucking hated it too. I still hadn't watched Dragon Ball Super yet. Could not stand it. And I figured that this would still be more in correlation with Dragon Ball Z, Battle of Gods, and Resurrection F, and it kind of was. There really wasn't much missing information between film number 2 and then this one. This is the first technical Super movie aside from Battle of Gods, Resurrection F, because Dragon Ball Super kind of remakes the storylines of both of those first two movies and kind of expands them a little bit better. But Broly was the first actual Super movie, and apparently it's canon. That seems to fucking matter to people. Whatever. And then we had the final straw for me. Because one of my biggest issues with Broly was the CGI fights. Like, you might have an animated Goku and an animated Broly fighting in a CGI world, and I fucking hated that. I thought it was awful. It was the kind of excuse that only modern-day new fans to anime that didn't grow up on Toonami, didn't grow up on things like Rurouni Kenshin and all of this shit that I grew up on, Dragon Ball Z, Naruto, these different things that I loved when I was a kid. I saw the hand-drawn animation, the amount of effort that went into that, and how special it was between the music, all of these things. And I loved them so much growing up. But modern-day anime fans here in America, not in Japan, but in modern-day America, don't have fucking standards, and I stand by that. They do not have quality writing standards. They don't typically have standards when it comes to animation style. And something like a nitpick I'll have later on with Super, with the fights being kind of slow compared to Dragon Ball Z. Not in the pacing of the fights, but the actual fights. Like, in Dragon Ball Z, you would have people punching so fast. In Z, or in Super, you don't have that. Not really. But the final nail in the coffin for me was the newest film, and that is Dragon Ball Super Super Hero, which is a very Gohan, and Piccolo, mainly even Piccolo, centric movie. I was super excited when I heard about this. Even though I was disappointed with 3 movies at this point and refused to watch the show, I decided to check this out. The first thing that I saw from this was the trailer. And the trailer, I realized, was fully CG animation. It was not hand-drawn at all. From what I can tell, there is no hand-drawn shit in here. It's just straight up nothing but CG animation. I was so angry over that. And this is post Dragon Ball Super ending as a TV show. This is the first new content, aside from the manga that was going kind of side by side with the show, that we had gotten new content from. And this movie made me so damn angry, because everybody who loved Super Show, which I didn't watch at the time, and people who loved the first 3 films, they ate this shit up, and they thought Super Hero was one of the best movies ever made, one of the best Dragon Ball Z films. Meanwhile, they've never seen Lord Slug, Broly's Second Coming. Any of the stuff that I loved, they hadn't seen it. Fusion Reborn. How many people do you know in real life who are Dragon Ball Z fans who have seen Fusion Reborn? Not many. There's a lot of friends of mine who didn't even know there were Dragon Ball Z movies. You know, and they found out when we were adults. Like, we were friends. I thought I told you about this when we were kids. And they loved Dragon Ball Z too. It was weird, man. But Super Hero had a massive reputation for being great. And the full CG animation thing, to me, had the same effect that I had with the first Miles Morales Spider-Man movie. What is that one? Is that Into the Spider-Verse? Whatever that movie is called. That movie, every time there was a fight or something, I was getting so sick, like motion sickness type of sickness, that I've never experienced before until I watched that, and I watched Broly, the Super movie. And then this, I had it too. 3 times in my life I've ever had motion sickness, and that's from the fights from all 3 of these movies I just talked about. And with these 4 movies, I went to work one day after Super Hero had come out on DVD, and I vented to one of my friends at work, and a newer guy who happened to be working with my friend, and I told them about how much I love Dragon Ball Z, but how much I fucking hated all 4 of these movies and thought they sucked ass and wouldn't even touch the show. Now, the new guy, a friend of mine named Savon, he still works there, great guy, really love this guy, I love talking to him about just pop culture stuff, comics, movies, anything. He knows the same stuff I know. He has a different perspective, a different opinion, a lot of different beliefs and whatever, but, you know, we get along talking about these things, we have our different opinions, we discuss things, and it's fun to have somebody in your real life, as a teammate, as a coworker, whatever, who knows these things. But he kept telling me about how good he thought Dragon Ball Super was, and that I should at least give it a try, that it's on Hulu, and I had seen it passing all the time on Hulu, but I always made the bleh face every time I saw it. And then, one day, as you hear the ambulance, I decided to give it a chance after Savon had mentioned that, and I noticed it was 131 episodes. The Super show started in 2015 and ran until 2018. It hasn't been back on since, because no one seems to know why it has a hiatus. It went into hiatus before COVID happened, so what in the world happened with Dragon Ball? I don't know if they just wanted to progress the manga first. Are they trying to let it catch up for a while? What are they doing with this? Well, before I watched Super, matter of fact, a couple of years ago before I watched Super, I sat down and I had bought a couple of volumes of the manga, just because I had heard so much about this and had heard how good it was. And I think I skipped Volume 1 because I was under the impression, I don't know if I read this or what, but I was under the impression that all of Volume 1 and Volume 2, or at least fully Volume 1, something like that, was the content that was Resurrection F and Battle of Gods, and I was like, I don't care about those suck ass, I don't even want to read them. So I skipped over it. I skipped over this book, and I think Volume 2, if I remember correctly. And then, I read Volume 3 and 4, which were a lot of the Goku Black arc. I don't want to spoil anything in this review. I'll just briefly talk about, like, saga names, like Goku Black, Future Trunks, whatever. I read a little bit of that, which I think was mainly in a little bit of Volume 2 and then 3 and 4. So I think I read wherever I thought Resurrection F had ended. I missed a whole tournament, dude. And I read that Goku Black stuff. And I had heard him passing about this, but I didn't know the details about that saga. And it took me in a little bit to being a fan of that. And mind you, that was a couple of years ago, before I actually sat down this year after watching Super Hero and thinking, you know, I'm going to try it out. these manga volumes, I love manga. I love comics in general. I love manga especially. It's getting better and better every time I read something. And the manga for Super just gets better and better. That's another story. I'll talk about that in a moment at the end of the video. But as I said, I picked up Super, or I started watching it on Hulu. Let me really start there. I started watching it on Hulu, and I decided, okay, I'm not going to skip the Battle of God stuff. I'm not going to skip the Resurrection F stuff. I'll just see what they can do with this. And man, I got to admit, it has flaws. The entire 131 episodes of Dragon Ball Super, for the 3 years that it ran, has issues. But I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Let me tell you again, if you hated Resurrection F and Battle of Gods, I am promising you right now, in this first 2 volumes, which both of those movies are contained in this is the adaptation of that for those first 2 seasons or volumes or whatever you want to call this. There's 10 of these volumes on DVD sets if you get them at Walmart, so there's 5 sets of 2 volumes per box set. And I own 3 at the current moment. I'm buying them all up because I loved the show so damn much. Of course, I have volume 1 and 2, I have 5 and 6, and then I have 9 and 10, but I'm trying to pick up all of them at some point. Sometimes I'll go and they don't have it, but I've also been on a video game kick, and I found this store that my friend told me about that I just love, and I've been buying games up left and right. But I need to pick up all of this because I loved it. I think Dragon Ball Super was such a massive surprise in a way that, like, you have to understand how deeply I hated the movies and how much I hated the show because of the movies. I still think the movies are bad. Again, at this current point, I haven't rewatched them. I haven't rewatched Broly at all. I haven't rewatched Battle of God since it came out, or Resurrection F. I haven't rewatched Superhero since it came out, and I watched the show entirely before I could go back and try Superhero about 2-3 weeks ago when I finished this show. And it has lingered with me. The amount of details, the emotions I felt, the excitement. Dude, I was watching this all of the time. On my breaks at work, on my phone, at home with my wife. We were watching this all of the time. I was obsessed when I was watching the show. It took me a little bit over a month, I think, to finish this. It was before I started doing the Friday the 13th reviews on my other channel, Strange Michael. And I'll tell you, Superhero surprised me so much by how much I loved it and how much better it was when it took Battle of Gods and Resurrection F and expanded them and really fleshed them out in a good way. Details like in, again, this is a small detail for Resurrection F, the second movie. There's a detail in there about the reason Frieza wanted like the Dragon Balls or something was to increase his height, to make himself taller. Out of pride. Does it sound fucking dumb? Do you remember that detail? People loved that detail when that movie came out. I think a lot of people forgot that. Just horrible bullshit. But Resurrection F adapted in this show, I'm pretty sure they got rid of that. I'm pretty sure it's not even in there as a small detail. It was a very quick line, and it was over. But the actual motivations in the show for everybody, Goku, Krillin, Frieza, when he's in it so much, all of these characters that I just loved growing up, seeing them utilized so well. It's like your favorite action figures and your kids are coming up with better storylines than what you had when you donated those figures to your kids. It's weird. I don't know how to explain it, but it just... Toriyama, I am so sorry that I doubted you. I am so befuddled by the fact that it's been 5 years since the show has ended. It's 2023, and I never got around to watching this until now. And I'm heartbroken the fact that I had all of this anger and bitterness and shit since like 2013, 10 years ago, that I refused to have anything to do with Super aside from the movies here and there to see if they got better, to see if it would make the show worthwhile, and a little bit of the manga I read for like volume 3 and 4, and that was it. I never picked up any more, but I bought some more recently. I'm sad. I'm truly sad. I'm depressed that it took me this long to get around to it. It saved me some money, but didn't, because now these volumes are like $35 a box set at Walmart, and it's completely worth the money in my opinion, 100%. I love this show. I absolutely love it, and I recommend it highly. I'm going to start getting into some of the plot, though. This picks up ignoring Dragon Ball GT, which I have some feelings for GT. I grew up on GT as well. It came out in America around the time that Z had ended, and I remember loving GT. It was within a couple of years after Dragon Ball Z had ended here that they had adapted it, have dubbed it and everything. By the way, I only watch dubbed, not subtitled. I don't like subbed at all. I don't with cartoons, because the action stuff really drags you into these anime things. If it's a movie, like I watch a lot of Shudder horror movies, if it's subbed on something like that, then that's fine. I don't mind that. That's cool. But with animation, I like it dubbed. That's just a taste thing, but that's how I feel. Cue the asshats in the comments section to tell me how wrong I am for not reading all of the fucking time as I watch TV. Anyway, so I loved this. They pretty much brought all the cast back, and again, it ignores Dragon Ball GT. Some people there for a while were trying to say that it was just kind of being a prologue to GT. I don't really agree. I will say this up front. The animation in this show is trying to be very bright, very different from the 90s grunge dark feel of Dragon Ball GT. And I love GT's animation. It's a mess of a show when it comes to writing and certain aspects of it, certain story developments, that kind of thing. GT is not perfect at all. It's very, very flawed. I love things like Super Saiyan 4 that we'll never have again, aside from some little projects here and there on the sides that aren't canon, if that fucking matters to you. But I love Super Saiyan 4, Goku and Vegeta. I think it looks amazing. GT was a cool show for what it was when it came out when I was a kid, in like the 2007, 8 era, somewhere in there. I think Dragon Ball Z ended here in America premiering in like 2005, I believe, or 6, somewhere in that ballpark. My parents had just split up. It was a weird time in my life, but Z was something that meant a lot to me, and I thought GT was fairly good. I had quite a few DVDs. I had the movie. I think it's called A Hero's Legacy. GT was cool to me. But Super, it's having a very bright style of animation. The coloring for it's very pretty, very bright. Battle of Gods and Super Resurrection F, whatever, had the same kind of look to them. But it feels sharper in the Super TV show. The anime, whatever you want to call this. And I liked that, but I prefer GT's animation style and the animation being hand-drawn pretty much always for that show more. Just so you know, if you care. Thought I would tell you. If you're here watching it, maybe you give a shit. I don't know. But Super went in this direction of being a lot brighter, a lot happier. There's a lot of dark moments in the show, especially in the final big tournament they have in the finale of the show, if you want to call it the third act of the 131 episodes. I think it's like 40 episodes of the final tournament. That shit was stressful, man. Very stressful. The show has its dark moments within Super, but a lot of it is humorous in a lot of good ways, but there are certain things they ruin, like Goku. Goku is just a fucking idiot in this show, and Goku was never like this, and I will stand by that. He wasn't like that in GT, he wasn't like that in Z. Stop trying, if you're a Super fanboy, to say that Dragon Ball Z had an idiot version of Goku. Yeah, he would make a dumb decision here and there, especially in the Majin Buu saga. I agree, but outside of that, that's not Goku. And I stand by that. Even the manga that I have been reading, I've gotten caught back up. I'm not really caught up, but I actually skipped everything all the way to Volume 9, which, Chapter 42, basically, of this, halfway through the book, picks up after the final episode of this show. I started watching that, or reading that, and I've read Volume 9 entirely already, and it was phenomenal. I love where they're going with the story after the Super TV show ends, and I would love to see more pick up directly where this is picking up. But I do have quite a few volumes in between, from Volume 8 all the way backwards to Part 1. I've got a lot of them. I'm starting to buy ahead of that now and trying to get caught up on the books because, damn, dude, I love the show so much I'm buying the books again. I really can't wait to get around and get caught up and read all of these things I missed out on for years, man. 10 years now. That Battle of Gods came out 10 years ago. The show was around in 2015. Manga's been around even longer. I've missed out on so much. I really have. I've missed out on a lot, and it makes me sad because of how much I loved this show. So I'm trying to give Toriyama my money and give Toyotaru down here, the artist and developer, the art by on these manga, I'm trying to give him my money too because I really loved it so much. The Super and what I've read of the manga so far. But from what I understand, the show and the manga are so identical that I don't want to go back and read that stuff. I'm sorry, I don't. I'd rather just skip to Chapter 42 and keep on going. To continue it like Super never ended as a TV show, even though I'd prefer it as a show. But manga's good too, because I love comics, and I love what they're doing in those books. Anyway, so where do I even start? Picks up after Dragon Ball Z. I've said that a couple of times and I lost track with something else. The original cast came back. Basically, it's almost immediately after Z. You have these different threads that were picked up from Dragon Ball Z, like when Vegeta was training with Trunks, and he said, if you can land one punch on me, in Dragon Ball Z, right before the Majin Buu saga started, he told Trunks at that time when they were training, by the way, Goten and Trunks are still kids at this point, which helps you identify, like, this is right around the time that Z ended. He takes Trunks, after he had promised that if he could land a blow on Vegeta, that he would take him to an amusement park. He takes him finally to the amusement park. We get to see this day and feel this world breathe. After all the events of the Buu saga, after all the things that we've had to wait off on, we get to see all of that, and it's so heartfelt. and I was surprised by that. That's one of the things that hooked me on this show. We get to see Krillin and his kid. The kids from the original GT show come back, like Pan isn't born yet. She comes back. Is it Pan or Pam? I think it's Pam, P-A-M. Pam isn't born yet in this. She's born in the show. She comes back. Krillin's daughter, what is her name? What is her name? He and 18's kid. I used to know this. I'm getting old. That kid is in here too. She's born at some point, or is already existent. Bulma, Vegeta and Bulma's youngest child, the daughter that was also in GT, that was introduced in GT, she's born in here. It's shocking, frankly, how many characters kind of just show up at different points. I love it. I love watching Goku and, how his relationship with Goten develops. They try to get away from this idea of Goku just being a bad father all the time. They tried to do something with that, because after the Buu saga, Chi-Chi is scared of losing him again. She tells him, hey, we don't even have any money. You need to work. And Goku is a farmer. He's a farmer. It's so weird. We knew that from Battle of Gods. That was talked about and joked about there. But the way they did it here was better. I love that. I love Goku's relationship with Hercule as, kind of the other father of his daughter-in-law. I loved all of that. Videl and Gohan, I love watching their marriage. I love when they have Pam and, how they just live. I love that stuff. It's fun. Of course, the show basically starts up with Beerus, Bills, as you know in the manga. Beerus is looking for something that he's seeing visions of called the legendary... What is it? No, the Super Saiyan God. He comes to Earth after he travels from universe to universe with his angel named Whis. Whis? I call him Whis. He changes... he goes from place to place looking for this Super Saiyan God. He thought the Saiyans were entirely extinct, basically, and he eventually makes his way to Earth and has a showdown with Goku and Vegeta and the rest of the Z fighters, but they're scared to death because Vegeta knows who Beerus is. He's terrified that he's a god of destruction, and Beerus would be almost impossible to kill. And that adds a new layer above what we saw with Majin Buu, Cell, Frieza, everything beforehand, which is cool. I like that a lot. They really did a better job on this show of developing the godhood thing, especially with Super Saiyan God. That is something I hated so much in Battle of Gods and in Resurrection F that made no sense to me on how that form of Super Saiyan, which I think is underwhelming. Let me say that. I do think that form is underwhelming. I don't like how it's just a change of hair color. The show does more with it, and I love that about it. The manga does more with it, and I love that too. But Super Saiyan God, the explanation for what that is, how it works, how you develop that, is so much better than what Battle of Gods and Resurrection F basically ignored. They didn't even go into detail in those movies about what it was, how it worked, anything. It was just fucking bad, and I've always hated that. But the Super show, and I'm assuming the manga as well, explain it in so much better detail that I really recommend that you would read that, or watch it, whatever, to really understand what that form is if you don't like Super Saiyan God and Super Saiyan Blue from the Resurrection F movie. I'm a fan of it now, but not to the extent of like Super Saiyan 3, Super Saiyan 4, all of those really badass designs that I think really land and have a more satisfactory introduction and satisfactory fight attached to them typically, or moment. Everybody remembers when Goku turned Super Saiyan 3 for the first time in America. All of us that were kids at that time or teens, we know that feeling every time we hear the music from that old Brad Falconer music. It's incredible. It's just that feeling of being taken back to my grandmother's living room, watching that premiere on TV in America for the first time ever, many years after it had already been in Japan. It was crazy. It's a wild feeling, man. But Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan Blue, they don't really have that impact, in my opinion. But they're utilized well for Super. It's almost like Toriyama wanted to get away from making the power scaling thing so big, even though Super's still guilty of doing it, but still. I like that the other Z fighters, too, in this show, as things ramp up fighting Beerus, especially after Beerus is gone and people realize there's a new threat. It's not just like a Majin Buu bubblegum monster, it's also gods that you have to fight now and shit. People that have other abilities, like time skip abilities in tournaments that come up as the show progresses, or the manga, or whatever we're talking about. They realize there's a bigger threat, so Tien, Yamcha, everybody, including Krillin especially, try to get out and start training more, and they get way stronger than they ever were in the previous incarnations of them, like GT, and in Z, where they're kind of put to the side after a while in Z, especially during the Buu saga, like I said. Piccolo really picked up on his training and stuff, got super powerful. The big reason for this, of course, are the different threats they have to face. A lot of the time it's just Goku and Vegeta facing those things, like the Goku Black arc. There's a Future Trunks arc in this show that made me feel things. And again, I talked about how in the manga, when I skipped to that particular area of the manga years ago, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad, dude. It was around the time I had my back injury, too, right before that, I believe, that I started trying to read this. And I'm gonna tell you, the Future Trunks stuff really impressed me because that's a throwback to the Cell Saga, and that was a great thing. I love Future Trunks, man. The multiverse thing they go for in Super is, to me, a little confusing, but it's still better than what I see with a lot of comic books and everything nowadays, especially with like the MCU's approach to the multiverse bullshit. That was clearly an influence on this by how popular that multiverse shit was there. So, you can argue whether you like that or not. I'm not a big fan of it, but in Super, it's not horrible, you know? So, where do I even go from this? We have the different arcs. Let's talk about some of the arcs here. We have the filler stories, which, like Z, I like the filler here. Like the Garlic Saga from back in Dragon Ball Z, I always liked that. I thought it was like a cool kind of monster movie, creature feature, vampire type of story, and it was fun. I loved that. Here you have different kind of filler stories. I don't want to go too much into much of them, but like one of them was like Goku being a bodyguard at like a Mr. Hercule event. You have like crossover things with some other stuff from Toriyama that was kind of fun. I like those filler things, but the big arcs here are what really make Dragon Ball Super intense, fun, kind of scary. You kind of worry about some of these characters. I've never worried about a character more in this show, and all of the history of it, than when I saw Master Roshi having to get into a fight towards the end of the show. That fight with Master Roshi really actually made me cry. I'm gonna be honest with you. If you haven't seen the show, I won't spoil it for you, but it was so beautiful and so well done, and it just shows the missing pieces of what we don't have in American entertainment anymore, whether it be movies, TV, anime, animation for kids, anything like that, books, all of it. It's just missing that heart that Toriyama gets, that a lot of Japanese media gets, Naruto gets, all of these different things that have been around for a while, that even the newest incarnation or sequel series or anything are getting them better than anything America's doing basically now, which is horribly sad, because as an American who loves this country, I wish we had more of that. It's sad that we don't, because it's almost always propaganda bullshit. And it's sad. The sagas, though. Let's talk about, like, I mentioned the Future Trunks arc. There's a thing called Goku Black that involves multiverse stuff, which is very cool. I like that a lot. You have some other stories in here. For example, there is a thing called the Tournament of Power, which is kind of, I believe, the final tournament in here. There's a couple of tournaments in Super. For 131 episodes, it's kind of surprising we have like 2 or 3 tournaments thrown into this show. There's kind of a small-scale one amongst 2 universes. I think that's the Universe of Power tournament, or Tournament of the Universes, Universal Tournament, something like that it's called. But then you have like the Tournament of Power, which was like a massive, all of these different universes having to go against each other. You had like 8 or 9 people per team, or 10 people or something. You have so many characters coming back that you never thought you'd see again. That I am telling you, it was just so impressive, man. As somebody who likes to write, as somebody who loves storytelling and loves stories and loves Dragon Ball Z on top of that, and now Super, I have to tell you, it impressed me so much how much love and heart and care was put into this. It is a hell of a show. It is a hell of a manga that I've read so far, what I have read of it so far, because I'm not going back and reading all the shit that I watched, because that's a lot. A lot. Not as extensive as the show, but it's like 8 other books that I haven't read. So, no. It ain't happening. I love Dragon Ball Super. The storytelling is wonderful. The pacing for the show is typically wonderful. But now I have to kind of move along into my complaints a little bit. Again, I love all the voice actors that came back, the ones I guess who are still alive, to play their characters on this show from the American dubs, the Funimation dub. I loved all of that. Having Sean Schemmel play Goku, he might be a piece of shit in real life, but I really love him in the show. Christopher Sabat playing Vegeta, he's a piece of shit in real life, but I really love him in the show as Vegeta. He's really good. Talented guys. Really talented. The whole team are talented. I really like these voices always fitting this show. The animation style I talked about a little bit, it's a little slow sometimes. Not like in frame rate. Sometimes the frame rate's really fucked up. Sometimes you have scenes kind of like in Dragon Ball Z every once in a while where you'll have like a really far away shot from Goku, and the detailing on his face and his hair and stuff look a little messed up. That's not great. It's not great. The show kind of disrespects Super Saiyan 3, which is really sad because I love Super Saiyan 3, as I said earlier. That's some bullshit. Basically, Super Saiyan 1, 2, and 3, mainly 2 and 3, are really, really shat upon because of Super Saiyan God and Super Saiyan Blue existing, and some other forms later on in the show that are supposed to be like the new super fast way of fighting that wasn't as impressive. There's a lot of, kind of like with the Super Broly movie, there's a lot of having people be hand-drawn and having CGI backgrounds, and I don't always like that. I think sometimes it looks really good. Sometimes it looks like shit. Sometimes it looks like lazy bullshit. There's probably a time crunch scenario of some sort. I don't like blending the two. I understand it's a very popular, very common thing to see in media now, especially in animation, but I don't like that. I don't. Either like fully realized CGI stuff, not with Dragon Ball Super, obviously, because Superhero was so bad, and I just watched that like 2 months ago. not so much like that, but like Pixar type stuff. I like fully CGI animated like that when it's a good movie, or like even the newest Grinch film from a couple of years ago with Benedict Cumberbatch playing him. That was good. I didn't hate that at all. But when we're gonna do hand-drawn, let's do hand-drawn. Let's not mix it with something else. Can you imagine how horrible Dragon Ball Z would have been if they had had the hand-drawn animation fights, but in the backgrounds had like CG skies and stuff? I don't think it would have looked good. I really don't. There's certain things that would be very hard to draw. I understand. I'm not a drawer. I can do a good stick figure. That's about it. Maybe a circle. Or an oval. If you can't do a circle. I can't do a circle. Let's just call it an oval. I'm not an artist, by any means. But I can understand why they would want to blend the two styles. To make it a little bit simpler on the artist. I get that. I understand that. Budgetary reasons, I get it. But you can't tell me it's less expensive to do CGI animation instead of doing hand-drawn. It might be easier, but you can't tell me it's cheaper. I don't believe that shit. And plus, when I look at the style of Z's animation, especially towards the later Z, like the end of the Cell Saga, maybe even halfway through the Cell Saga, even though I love the animation of all of Dragon Ball Z, basically, the character designs kind of change a little bit, but over time I still love it all. Especially in the Majin Buu saga. Like, all of it was great. When people would turn Super Saiyan, you would feel it because of the way it was drawn. The impact of the music, the sound effects, all of those things. That stuff is typically here too. But, again, it's not as impactful because the fights are so slow compared to Z. Z, people are flying all over the place, beating the shit out of each other, putting each other through walls and stone and earth and everything, dirt, water, all of it. Fire, all of it. And Super doesn't do that as much. And with all the tournament stuff, they really don't do it as much. But the tournaments are smart. They're smart in how they have the fights, how they go about certain things. I like that. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I even like the moments between different, like, big tournament arcs and whatever, where we have people just training. That stuff is really fun to watch. Watching 18 train with Krillin was fun and Super. I thought it was just really enjoyable. I don't really have much more to say about the animation stuff. Again, that coloring is very bright compared to something like GT, or even Z for that matter. But I prefer what I saw in those shows. I prefer it. Not just out of nostalgia, but I think just in execution it looks better. I am scared to death that when we get a new sequel to Super, if they ever make a new TV show, they never said if Super's actually canceled. They just haven't kept going yet. Or maybe never will, I don't know. But they have scared me now with Superhero. I feel like this was the testing ground to see what people would think about just doing fully CGI. I will take what I can get as long as the storytelling is good, but I won't be happy with this animation style. I don't think many people will be, and I think in time in the future, people will look back and say, that was a terrible idea. Let's never do it again. I really believe that. Now, music. Let me take a taste of drink. I'm getting kind of dry mouth. You can probably hear the raspiness coming. Music. I love the Brad Faulkner music from Z. I love the metal grunge stuff and even the shitty rap song they chose for GT. I think it's cringe, but it's awful. And it's also fun because it's awful. But the actual music, like that metal, like doom, 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 doom theme song from GT, that is the shit. That made some of the fights that were kind of weak there even better. Those fights, by the way, the style of those fights in GT not being super, super fast the way Z was, they remind me a lot of the fights in Super. So if you want a comparison, if you haven't watched the show, that's kind of what you're getting. But the music, man, Z and GT, and even Dragon Ball, the original show, to me, Had incredible music. Not a big fan of the original Dragon Ball. Never watched the entire thing all the way through. At some point I will do that, but probably not anytime soon. I'm still watching Naruto Shippuden at the current moment. Plus reading and playing games and stuff. I'm busy. I'm busy, and I work 40 hours a week, sometimes more. So it's hectic. And I have a wife that I love deeply too, so I spend time with her more than anything. But the music here is not Brad Faulkner metal types of shit. And for me, being an American Dragon Ball Z fan, I'm not trying to be entitled, but I'm saying that being gone really affected this show. There were certain moments, like the Future Trunks arc, and the darkness of some of the stories, like the Goku Black arc, the Tournament of Power, the Master Roshi stuff I talked about, that it could have benefited so much more from a Brad Faulkner scoring, that I really miss it a lot, and I really wish we had more of that. There was nothing like back in the day watching like Lord Slug's movie and having like Disturbed in the background. Yeah, Disturbed was in that film, in case you didn't know. Or like watching Broly and having fucking Pantera playing from that. That was incredible, and I still listen to that music to this day. The Brad Faulkner music from back in the day with like Super Saiyan 3's theme, or just the general music from Dragon Ball Z and his production company, was incredible. I loved it. Not that there's anything bad with the typical Japanese score that was on the old shows or the newer one. It's just, it's not for me. I don't like that style of music as much. I will say, I don't think it's as beautiful as the music from, like, Naruto, for example. Super does not have the kind of music that a lot of the old animes that premiered in America, not premiered in America, but when they premiered in America, they had the kind of type of music they had. It doesn't have that impact, in my opinion. I think there's something missing there. But the storytelling is there, and if you can get over the music a little bit, I think eventually you'll like it more, like I did. Over time, the songs in this show, some of the different theme songs, grew on me, and I really connected with them, and I felt like they were connected to certain moments in this super show that, for time everlasting, the rest of my life, I will remember those theme songs and the general essence of those songs. Very pretty sometimes a little too goofy. Sometimes with some of the certain scenes, they're a little too pandery to the kind of feeling you should feel like. This is the playful music. This is the serious music. Please don't do that. Please don't do that. I'm an adult. I'm an adult. You're probably an adult if you're watching this. Please don't do that. Please don't. But I wish it had the Brad Faulkner score. I feel like that really could have landed a lot better. At the end of the day, though, I love Z more than I love Super. In some aspects, I think Super is a better show, almost entirely, as a matter of fact, than GT. GT has some great stuff in there. I love the dark edginess to it. I love the music in there. There's so many good things about it. Super Saiyan 4. But Dragon Ball Z, or Dragon Ball Super, to me, it gets more right. And it feels more like Dragon Ball Z than GT did, aside from the fights. But the humor and whatever, that feels more like Dragon Ball Z, and I love that. Dragon Ball Z to me is the pinnacle of Dragon Ball. I think that is where it is. That is where Dragon Ball Z, or Dragon Ball in general as a franchise, became so popular because of how damn good and serious Z was. When I have people like my friend Savon tell me that the reason Super's movies, before I watched the show, were so goofy and silly and too comedy focused was because Toriyama doesn't consider himself a serious writer. That's fucking bullshit. Because if you have read or watched Z, you know that's bullshit. Because it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. His seriousness to me is the best thing that Toriyama offers, but this show still manages to be clever. And I know this is a long review, but I had a lot to say and I wanted to say it because I wanted to get it off my chest about how wrong I was for not watching this show. It was so good. I can't wait to talk more about the books. I probably won't review Volume 9. Maybe I will, maybe I won't, I don't know. My general gist is this new story with this character named Moro, like a magician type of dude. It's going to be badass. Can't wait to talk about it. Probably going to pick that up in a Volume 10. Whenever I get that, I'll review it after I read it, and I'll talk more about Volume 9 there, because I don't want to go back and cover all those books leading up to Volume 10. And let me try that again. I already reviewed this on another channel that I'm kind of abandoning, you know? So it's not a big deal. With all that being said, though, if you want a good place to start with Dragon Ball Super, the manga might be like the perfect place, but if you're somebody who loves Dragon Ball Z, or GT, or just Dragon Ball in general, and you haven't seen Super for whatever reason, please, I am telling you as somebody who was dead-ass wrong about this show, check out the show. It's on Hulu, the entire thing, 131 episodes as of right now, which is June of 2023, almost July of 2023. Please watch it. The first few episodes, mainly the first one, will hook you, even though it's, for a while, a reintroduction of Resurrection F and Battle of Gods. That does not matter. I'm telling you, it does not matter. It is it's such a massive improvement over everything that they did in those two shitty-ass movies that I have not seen in ages, that I don't know how to describe it to you. Check it out. Save on if you're watching this. Thank you so much, my friend, for telling me I was wrong and telling me I should at least give it a shot. This, folks, was a lesson in why you should give things a shot and not just assume that you know everything about it, even though I had arguably, I would have said once upon a time, given these movies a shot over and over again, and they disappointed me constantly. They still do, but I plan, because of how good this show was and because of how good the manga is so far, I plan on going back and watching these 4 films again before I review them officially on the channel. I think I reviewed Superhero a while back, but I deleted my review. That was before I watched Super, as a matter of fact, that I deleted that review. But I think I'm going to sit down and actually watch these again sometime. Maybe in, like, fall. I don't know. But I'll watch them again, and I'll talk about it, and see if I like them better. I don't think I will, because I think the writing on these are subpar. And these movies are too goddamn long. Back in the day, they were like an hour to maybe an hour and 20 minutes, and they were so perfect in that mainly an hour and 10-minute time frame. That was so good for a Dragon Ball Z movie or special. Like Bardock, the Father of Goku, one of the best movies ever. I will stand by that. Hell of a movie. If you haven't seen it, you're missing out. But what they did to everything in these 4 movies was bullshit. Maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe my opinion will change after how great Super as a show was, but we'll see. Anyway, what are your thoughts on these 4 movies? What are your thoughts on this Dragon Ball Super manga up to this point? I know they're at like chapter 70 or 80 or something now. It's been a while. They have like a chapter every 2 weeks or every week or something that comes out of this. What are your thoughts on that? I think the newest volume is like volume 18 or 20. I don't know. It's quite a bit up there. What are your main thoughts on Dragon Ball Super, the show? I'm telling you, if you have not seen it, I hope I didn't spoil anything for you too much in here. I tried to avoid all that as much as I possibly could. But dude, holy shit, I was wrong. And I told my wife, I was so happy that I was wrong about this. It's one of those things that, like, it's like if Disney had put out like an incredible Star Wars movie after so many shitfests over and over again between Solo and Last Jedi and all of the shitty-ass shows that keep coming out. If they had put out something that was so goddamn impressive, like how this was, my whole life would be rejuvenated. My whole hope for something like Disney would be completely rejuvenated. But right here, my love for Dragon Ball Z in general, not just Dragon Ball, but Z, has been rejuvenated. And I'm so excited about that because I've been playing the hell out of some Dragon Ball Z games, and I've been reviewing them left and right on this channel, as you guys have probably seen. With all that being said, though, I will continue to collect this set. I have 2 more box sets, like I said, to get, which are Volume 3 and 4, or the set with Volume 3 and 4, and then the one with 7 and 8. But I've almost got it all, and I can't wait, because this is something I could see myself rewatching a lot. It's a lot shorter than Dragon Ball Z, but Dragon Ball Z, man, it's perfect. It's pretty much perfect. The Majin Buu saga is a little wonky. Some of the earlier stuff's not as good as the, like, Cell saga and stuff, like the stuff like Ginyu and all of that. It's okay. I don't hate it. It's early, you know, but once Z takes off, it's really, really, really great. But I think Z's better than Super, but, like, I think Super's better than GT. I love certain aspects of GT, but Super, to me, is overall better at the end of the day. I'm wrong. I was wrong, and I'm super happy that I'm right now. Anyway, have you seen Super, or read it, or anything? What do you think about these movies, these books, these games, all of that? I'd love to see. Not the games. Not the games. I didn't mean the games. I meant the show. What do you think about all that, especially the show itself? I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments down in the comment section down below for Dragon Ball Super. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Do you think it's a mess? Do you think it's better than GT? Love to hear all that down below, too. I want to see some love for this, man. I'm glad to admit that I was wrong. It's such a great feeling to know that you had no hope for something, you tried it out, and it really, really made you happy. Anyway, thank you all so much. God bless you guys. Goodbye.